Christina and the Complete Jew. A novel by Dr. Ahmed. This book continues the story of the Arab sugar daddy and the beautiful Indian girl, and the story of the Indian child bride and the old Arab husband, and also the story of the Indian Miss World, and the rage of Muslims of the world. They have been written in English and translated into Arabic by the author Dr. Ahmed. This story resonates with genuine love, strong resilience, and steadfast courage. I invite you to accompany me as I continue narrating the story of the rare, fabulous beauty of the Indian girl, Ifad Khan, and her extremely beautiful mother, Rehana Khan. Before we dive in the tapestry of the story, I would like to remind the reader this novel is narrated in 6 books. Book 1, The Arab Sugar Daddy and the Beautiful Indian Girl. Book 2, The Indian Child Bride and the Old Arab Husband. Book 3, The Indian Miss World and the Rage of Muslims of the World. Book 4, Christina and the Complete Jew. Book 5, The Tears of God, Jews, Blacks, and Muslim Women. And Book 6, The Hidden Life of the Prophet Muhammad. This is an intriguing epic story which exhibits resilience, love, and sacrifice. Book 4. In Search of a Companion in Her Lonely Journey in Life. Copyrights. All rights are reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means without the prior written permission of the author, except by a reviewer, who may quote brief passages from a review for printing in a public newspaper, general magazine, school journal, or university article. All characters in this novel are fictional and any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, is merely coincidental. Chapter 7. The Trip of the Former Miss World to India. Christina Lewinsky arrived at the Mumbai Chhatrapati Shivaji International Airport after a long and very exhausting trip. Her trip brought her from the United States of America to her motherland. Her flight took her through Heathrow and Doha International Airports. Her trip was, for the most part, spent praying in silence or reading her Holy Bible. After her recent conversion from Islam to Christianity, the Indian Miss World Aphrodite's tragic life has undergone drastic changes. Her heart's pain and sorrow have been replaced with unspeakable joy and peace of mind. Her life is now filled with love, resilience, and courage. She reveled in her new spirituality, finding fulfillment and joy whenever she prayed, read her Bible, or sang a hymn from those songs her American lover used to sing to her while they were horseback riding or sitting by the lakeshore. Her new spiritual life seemed to connect her with her American lover in a tangible way. Michael is continually appearing to her in dreams and singing to her. She can still hear his musical voice singing to her his favorite songs, such as Amazing Grace, Blessed Assurance, In Christ Alone, Lover of My Soul, and many more lovely spiritual songs and hymns. Whenever she reads her Holy Bible, she can hear his voice as if he is sitting by her side and reciting those verses in her ears. Through her lover, many biblical verses were implanted in her memory and engrafted in her heart and soul, and she can recite them from memory. For God so loved the world, that he gave his only Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. The Gospel of John, chapter 3, verse 16. Love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you, and persecute you. The Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5, verse 44. For I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it is the power of God unto salvation to every one that believeth, to the Jew first, and also to the Greek. For therein is the righteousness of God revealed from faith to faith, as it is written, the just shall live by faith. The Epistle of Romans, chapter 1, verses 16 and 17. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. The Gospel of Luke, chapter 6, verse 31, commonly known as the social golden rule. The continuous spiritual presence of her American boyfriend Michael made Christina conclude that although she could not have him physically as her husband, has become united to him spiritually for eternity and infinity and beyond. He remained perpetually her spiritual friend and guardian angel. In line with her spiritual changes, Christina's attitudes toward the world have changed too. She is no longer the timid girl she was before her conversion from Islam to Christianity. She ceased fearing people around her, and this is punctuated by her decision to never again conceal her face behind a tyrannical and demeaning Islamic burqa, or veil. She neither flaunted her beauty nor hid it. She dresses normally and initiates conversations with people that she has just met. She made friends easily. Of course, not all the people that she had met were keen to be friends. While in London in transit, she had chanced upon two Pakistani women who responded to her greeting and asked her about her name and country of origin. It is customary for Muslims who are traveling abroad in Western countries to try and find out if you are a Muslim like them. This is not a casual question. If neither your name nor your clothes nor your eating and physical habits reveal your religious affiliation, they will ask you point blank if you are indeed Muslim. And woe unto you, if you happen to have a Muslim name but have converted to Christianity. My wife and I are some of the unlucky people who go by Muslim names but are Christians. We recently moved from a small city to a large one in North America. One of our new neighbors, Mr. Khan and Mrs. Khan from Pakistan, had hastily concluded from our names that we are Muslims. Mr. Khan and his son helped us unload the U-Haul truck and carried our luggage into our new apartment. Meanwhile, Mrs. Khan cooked the most delicious Pakistani food in naan bread we had ever tasted. Wasting no time, Mrs. Khan contacted her former Chinese employer and recommended my Indian wife as an eminently suitable candidate for employment. My wife was interviewed by the gentleman and was immediately offered a position. She happily accepted the offer and thanked the good neighbor, Mrs. Khan. I, on the other hand, felt less comfortable with the speed congeniality that had mushroomed in our quick friendship and had an uneasy feeling that their generosity was based on a singular misunderstanding. I shared my worries with my wife, explaining that the Khans could have quite possibly been highly accommodating simply because they thought we were Muslims like them. Unfortunately, our lovely blossoming friendship lasted only a few days. Mrs. Khan was shocked and became livid when she noticed our children coming back from their new school wearing uniforms bearing the name, Sacred Heart School. She wasted no time confronting my wife and shouted in her face, "How dare you send your Muslim children to a Christian school?" My wife innocently replied, "Because we are Christians." And that did it. Mrs. Khan had reacted in a shout of terror as if my wife had hit her with a hammer on her head or stabbed her with a poisonous dagger in her heart. If my wife had said we are Satanists and we are worshipping the devil openly in the Church of Satan, the Muslim woman might not have been so much outraged with us. To cut a long story short, my wife went to work the following day and was promptly told by her Chinese employer that his former worker Mrs. Khan had come to see him, and she had retracted her recommendation for her employment. As a result, Mrs. Ahmed had her name struck off the list of employees, and another girl was appointed in her place. My poor wife was fired before she began working and did not get any compensation at all. This might sound unbelievable and such things should not happen in the West, but sadly, religious prejudice knows no boundaries. After that, our new Pakistani Muslim neighbors have never even looked at us without undiluted displeasure or disgust. They have spread bad rumors about us among other Muslims. They have falsely accused us of being Muslim apostates who sold their Islamic religion for the sake of money and Western visas. As a consequence, we have been boycotted by almost every Muslim in our neighborhood. At any rate, the two Pakistani women who met Christina at the Heathrow International Airport wanted to determine her religious affiliation before engaging in friendly banter with her. When she related that she was born in an Indian Muslim family in Mumbai, but she had recently embraced Christianity while she was in the USA, they challenged her conversion and accused her she is becoming an infidel, hypocrite, an apostate and on her way to the hellfire. A Muslim will never ever believe that another Muslim can convert to Christianity out of conviction. He will think that the reason behind the conversion is money, a love affair with a Christian girl, or a visa to a Western country. This inhibits belief because of the distorted and ugly picture in which Islam depicted Christianity. Christina left the international airport of Mumbai in a taxi and secured a hotel room in Bandra. She decided on Bandra because that was where she used to live when she was kidnapped and abused by the late famous Bollywood film director Mahmood Khan. She decided that she must stay in the hotel until she could find her biological mother Rehana Khan. Christina knows that she is going to face a great deal of difficulty searching for her Muslim mother in a cosmopolitan city as densely populated as Mumbai, which has a population in 2021 that exceeded over 20.5 million people. Her search for her mother without an address is like looking for a needle in a field full of heaps of haystacks or an ant in the Amazon rainforest. She does not know where to start or how to begin. She remembered that as a child she used to live with her poor family in a hut in a slum neighborhood called Dharavi. It is the second largest slum in the world. She knows that if she goes to that slum neighborhood she will probably be raped and robbed by the Gandas, Indian gangsters and bandits. After much deliberation, Christina then decided to hire some locals to help her with her search. The crux of her search is her ability to find trustworthy locals. She has no intention of hiring help off the streets. After some thought, she figured that Christian Indians would be a good bet for her. Chapter 8. Searching for a good church in Mumbai. As soon as the following Sunday came along, from her hotel lobby Christina called a taxi, and when it came, she asked its driver to take her to the nearest Christian church. Being still a recently converted Muslim girl to Christianity, or novice believer, Christina does not know there are Catholic, Orthodox, Protestant, and many other denominational churches. The taxi driver took her to a church in the Santa Cruz neighborhood where the local South Indian Christians meet every Sunday. The church is simply called the First Church of India owing to its claim that the Apostle Thomas, one of the 12 apostles of Christ, was its founder. Some of its older parishioners believe that their forefathers who founded the church were Christians even before the arrival of the Apostle Thomas in South India. Some of their staunch and fanatical believers went further in their assertions and claimed that their ancestors were Christians even before Jesus Christ incarnated as a human being and came to earth, and then he was born as a baby to the Virgin Mary in Bethlehem. The members of the First Church of India are so pure Christians, as they usually claim, that they cannot allow room for a Christian girl from a Muslim background. They are like the Puritans, a people with covenant, who treated the Native Americans as the old Canaanites, and they are the new Israelites and persecuted the natives. Likewise, the South Indian Christians despise everyone who was not born a pure Christian. A Hindu or a Muslim converted to Christianity may be considered by most of them as an unclean pig or a filthy stray dog that came to worship among the innocent lambs. In the same way, Christina has been treated as a Gentile girl who dared to enter a holy sanctuary and defiled it by her presence. Therefore, when she felt that she was an unwanted guest, she left the First Church of India and decided not to step foot there again. On the following Sunday, a cab driver took Christina to another Indian church in a place between Santa Cruz and Andheri neighborhoods. At first, Christina thought that the cabbie misunderstood her request and brought her to a mosque. Nonetheless, the cabbie insisted that it was a Christian ecclesia and not a Muslim masjid. The congregational believers of that church are bound by strict religious rules and regulations, one of which is the posture of the faithful during service. There are no chairs or pews in the prayer hall, and the followers are expected to be on bent knees during the entire service. Men and women sit separately, segregating even husbands from their wives, fathers from their daughters, and brothers from their sisters. No one can wear multicolored clothes, and women are not to wear trousers and shirts, makeup or gold, or any other types of jewelry. Television sets are prohibited among the faithful, and the TV is roundly condemned as the devil's box. No one is permitted to watch movies or go to film theaters. The other so-called worldly trappings like songs, music, and dance are equally reviled. No believer can own a computer, laptop, iPad, iPhone, iPod, etc. Just like a 16th century church in Europe, which considered every invention after the Industrial Revolution was banned and forbade its congregation to use it. This Indian church is referred to as the faith home, and its congregational believers are divided into the upper home and the lower home. The upper home are the brothers and sisters who forsook home, family, drinking alcohol, and attending school to devote their lives as full-time servants of the Lord and are considered a permanent fixture of the church. They are not allowed to marry or return to their homes, opting to live and die in the faith home. They are not permitted to seek the help of physicians in the event of ill health nor partake of any kind of medication whatever the seriousness of their sickness. Naturally, the lower home are the believers who refuse to make sacrifices to that extent. They can get married as husbands and wives and give their sons and daughters in marriage when they are of the proper ages. They are also allowed to work and go to school. However, they are considered spiritually inferior to the members of the upper home. Any member of this lower group who is caught red-handed praying or laying hands on another member will be sharply rebuked and warned, and if he does it again, he must be expelled and handed over to the devil to destroy his body. The pastor also is under a perpetual celibacy vow. He is the main leader of the upper home and lower home. Besides him, there is a full-time mother who lorded over the sisters of both homes. This church is one of the hundreds of branches of the Mother Church in Madras City. Aphrodite Khan and her Hindu mother Rani Krishna had already visited a similar branch in New Delhi when they got chased by the Muslim terrorists of Dawood Ibrahim. It is worth mentioning that the two Good Samaritan nuns, Nancy and Annie, were in the Upper Faith Home in New Delhi Church before the evil Muslim terrorists raped them and made them disqualified and ran away from the lower home and became prostitutes in Mumbai. As we know, the information that said the two fled nuns became prostitutes in the brothels of Ferris Road in Bombay Central is based on conjecture and some unconfirmed rumors. At the close of the Sunday service, two virgins among the residents of the upper home approached Christina and told her that she should never again come to their Holy Faith home in immodest Western clothes. That day, Christina happened to be wearing a tight t-shirt and jeans. During the 3 hours of the Sunday service, she stayed on her knees, tortured by the unfamiliar posture. In addition to her unbearable pain and discomfort, the members of the church made it obvious that they disapproved of her mode of dress, making her feel as if she was sitting naked in their midst. It did not take Christina long to decide that she would never step foot there again. Her lesson learned, the following third Sunday, Christina stopped a rickshaw driver and narrated her embarrassment at the hospitality of the two churches she visited and asked to be taken to a proper Indian church. The driver of the rickshaw claimed to have understood her problem and took her to a place where the Indian Christians who were originally from Goa City congregate in a nondescript church. Initially, Christina thought that the driver did not understand her request when the rickshaw came to a stop in front of a high school. She saw no familiar signs of a church such as a huge cross or a big hanging bell. The driver, however, insisted that it was a Christian church and that he had on many occasions dropped Kwan Christians at the very same place. Christina could not argue further with the driver when she heard hundreds of voices singing some popular Christian songs. She paid the fare and walked toward the familiar sounds. Entering the school hall, from the rear entrance, she felt as though she had barged into a wedding reception or a disco hall. The sound of the heavy metallic instruments and the shouting of the people do not resemble in any way the Sunday service she is used to. She saw everybody dancing and shouting. Some of the people are playing tambourines while they are jumping, shouting, and dancing to the music. At the stage she saw young men and pretty girls playing every kind of musical instrument she has seen and some she had not seen before. Every face she saw is happy and joyful. Even little children and old folks are standing on their feet and clapping their hands and singing. What surprised her more is that no one is carrying any hymn book, and everyone seemed to know the words by heart, shouting their praises at top of their voices. It is as if the whole congregation is in fact the church choir. When Christina realized that she is the only person who is not singing and dancing, she began to clap her hands and sway to the music. She stood on her feet for more than 40 minutes before finally the group dancing and singing is over. She has never stood on her feet in church for such a long time, and as the joyful praise and worship session is over, the leader of the huge congregation announced that everyone should shake hands with at least 10 people around him before taking a seat. Christina has been approached by many people who warmly shook hands with her. Once the Sunday service is over, 5 men and 3 women came to Christina and talked to her. All of them introduced themselves as the church pastors. Once again, she is shocked when she came to know that there are 8 pastors in one single church. In the States, her church had one single pastor and a few elders. One of the female pastors told her that they are glad to have her in their midst. She then asked her to introduce herself and share the circumstances of her acceptance of Jesus as her Lord and Savior. Christina told her that she came recently from the United States of America, and she was born and brought up in a Muslim family in Mumbai but had since converted to Christianity. The female pastor asked her where she is living and when did she convert. Christina briefly narrated her story and said at the present she is living in a hotel at Bandra neighborhood. The pastors of the church are visibly excited to learn that Christina is not only a Muslim convert girl, but an NRI, non-resident Indian, who came all the way from the USA and is now putting up in an expensive hotel. Christina then received and accepted an invitation to lunch at the senior pastor's house. She is inclined to decline the invitation, but the pastor's wife is insistent. The pastor's wife is a pastor too. After she accepted the lunch invitation, 15 young girls and 12 elderly women surrounded her. All of them greeted her and all of them praised her marvelous beauty. One girl told her, "You look like a film star," another said to her, "You look like the queen of Bollywood, Aishwarya Rai," and yet a third girl likened her to the former Miss World, Priyanka Chopra. Oddly, none of them has recognized her for who she is. At the senior pastor's house, Christina has been peppered with 101 questions by the pastor's wife and some of her guests. Most of the questions are designed to pry into her background. Christina decided never to say anything about those 2 evil Muslim men who abused her because she had forgiven them. Moreover, she does not want anyone to know that she is a rich young woman and has millions of dollars. She did not tell them that she was a former Miss World and a one-time heroine in an Indian movie. She has only told them that she was born and brought up as a Muslim girl in Mumbai, got adopted by a Hindu woman and had immigrated to America. Then she said the reason for her visit to India is to find her Muslim mother. She informed them that her Muslim father died when she was a small girl. Christina once again explained that she had accepted Christ as her Lord and Savior in the States and was baptized recently. The pastor and his wife promised to help her with her search for her biological mother. Christina then told them that she was willing to pay wages to any of the church members who were willing to help her with her search, adding that she would cover all other side expenses. After lunch, the senior pastor's wife invited Christina to stay in her house until she could find her biological Muslim mother. She admonished her against the unnecessary expense of an expensive hotel and reminded her that the church has to provide free accommodations to visiting foreign Christian sisters like her. Christina told her that she did not want to be a burden to the church, but both the pastor and his wife adamantly insisted she check out of the hotel that very day. Christina tried to make many excuses but to no avail. The pastor, his wife, and other leaders have rejected them all and insisted on being hospitable. With no other polite option left, Christina gave in to their hospitality and resigned herself to the hope that it was for the best. Fellowship with the very Christians who proposed to help her find her mother required it. As soon as Christina moved to the senior pastor's house, she became the shining star of the church. Many brothers and sisters in the church visited the main pastor's house to make her acquaintance. Most of the women who visited her were mothers of young boys who were looking for life partners for their unmarried sons. Likewise, most of the men who came to see her were young boys who were searching for suitable Indian brides. Christina, with her unmatchable beauty, has met Indians' ideal requirements for a suitable bride and surpassed them. She is desirable to every typical Indian family looking to wed their son off. Her complexion is white like a foreign girl, she possesses extreme beauty, she is young, and above all, she is an NRI, an Indian girl from the promised land for all Indians, which is called the United States of America. Many of the above qualities can be found in single Indian girls, but the last quality is an absolute rarity in the church. Christina, ignorant of this fact, does not know why those men and women have visited her. She assumed that they had come to visit the residence of the church pastor and his wife and had talked to her out of courtesy. Chapter 9. The Three Lovers of Christina. As soon as it became expedient, the senior pastor commissioned three brothers to undertake the task of assisting Sister Christina. In that church, every man is addressed as a brother and every woman as sister except the pastors and their wives. The 8 pastors have the honorific of pastor attached to their names. Christina's 3 helpers gallantly refused any wage but did not decline the offer for incidental expenses. All the appointed brothers said they can only conduct their searches on Saturdays and Sundays. On Saturdays, they promised to work for Sister Christina from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. without pay. On Sundays, they can begin the search immediately after the church is over at 2 p.m. and go on until 10 p.m., offering to work through all statutory and religious holidays. India has the highest number of public holidays in the world due to the many religions it has. The search for Sister Christina's Muslim mother began the very next Saturday. In the interim, her life is a hive of activity, and many things happen to her that are worthy of mentioning, but due to the importance of locating her biological mother, we will ignore them all and go directly to the first day of the search. The 3 brothers, besides their zeal and love to help a sister in Christ, are harboring some hidden agendas. Christina is not aware of the ulterior motives of her helpers. We will ignore those concealed agendas, too, for the time being, and go ahead with the search. Searching for a Muslim woman by the name of Rehana Khan among the millions of Muslims in Mumbai is like looking for a small stone in a huge mountain of rocks. The name Rehana is as common among Indian Muslim women as the name Mary in the West or Fatima in the Middle East. The last name Khan is used by almost 75% of Indian Muslims and the rest go by Sheikh. So, to narrow down the search, Sister Christina informed her helpers to use her birth name, Ifat Khan. Accordingly, she requested her helpers to search for a Muslim woman by the name of Rehana Khan who used to have a daughter called Ifat Khan. Such little information proved to be next to useless. The first month revealed dozens of Muslim women having the name of their biological mothers Rehana, and each one of them begat a daughter named Ifat Khan. Consequently, Sister Christina is compelled to reveal more hidden secrets about her mother and herself. She disclosed to her helpers that the last time she saw her mother was when they were in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in Jeddah City, and at that time, she was 7 years old. The reason for their separation was that her mother was falsely accused of being a prostitute, thrown behind bars, tried by an Islamic Sharia court, and sentenced to be stoned to death. However, some good Americans of the CIA intervened and saved her mother's life. After spending 3 years in a Saudi women's jail, her mother returned to Mumbai. The senior pastor, his wife, and the helpers told Sister Christina that such information is going to hinder the search rather than help it. According to them, no Indian woman will admit to being charged with adultery in Saudi Arabia even if she was proven innocent. Such information for sure will damage her reputation among her Muslim community and neighbors. Sister Christina changed her former version of the story and told them that her mother was accused of getting married to 3 husbands at the same time. This new information sounded a bit better than the first one, but it has some moral difficulty in it. Ethically speaking, how can she expect young Christian men to go around among Muslims from house to house, hut to hut, and one slum to another slum searching for a Muslim woman who was called Rehana Khan and has a daughter by the name of Ifat Khan and got separated from her because she was accused in Saudi Arabia of having 3 husbands at the same time, sentenced to be stoned to death, and somehow saved by some good Americans? All the additional personal details have been discarded after being deemed less than helpful. As it turned out, the helpers had been told by the senior pastor and his wife to depend on God and their daily fervent prayers. With the search ongoing relentlessly, Sister Christina has been faced with another serious problem. She discovered that all her 3 male helpers were now hopelessly in love with her. She admires all of them, but she does not love any one of them. She understood that her extreme beauty had enticed them and therefore made each one of them fall madly in love with her. She mixes with them freely and looks on them as good friends, but her friendly attitude toward them has been construed as favor and interest by each of them. Every time they came to help her during her search, she traveled with them in the same taxi, local train, and rickshaw, sitting side by side and in proximity. In the interest of cordial relations, she dined with them and occasionally went out with them for sightseeing. Familiarity breeds attachment, and soon her helpers start to push limits and invite her for meals at their homes. In their eagerness to curry her love favor, some of her helpers took her on sightseeing trips around Mumbai, being careful to conceal their efforts from the other Christian brothers and sisters in the church. The church has ironclad rules forbidding any sort of gender interaction before marriage, which in effect also denies love marriage. All families in the church believe and encourage arranged marriages. The process of matrimony usually involves a brother signaling his intent to his family. His representatives will then advise the church via the pastor and his wife. If the family of the other party consented, then the betrothal should be made official, and the marriage must take place soon. Before the matrimony, the engagement waiting period under any circumstances, whatever might be, should not extend beyond 3 months. During this waiting period, the fiancé and his fiancée should never meet anywhere alone. No dating is permitted. No physical contact is allowed, and that means not having a hug, kiss, or any bodily touch, even if shaking hands is forbidden. No exchanging of gifts. The fiancé can give his fiancée as a gift a copy of the Holy Bible. Sister Christina did not know the seriousness of the friendship until their marriage betrothals began to come to her one after another. In fact, in less than 2 months she received 8 matrimonial betrothals from other interested brothers, but she rejected them all, without being obliged to give a reason. When her 3 helpers started to send their betrothals through their mothers, Sister Christina was forced to reveal her vow of celibacy. She told the senior pastor's wife that she made a vow not to marry a man, and she decided to remain a nun who married herself to the Lord Jesus Christ. The pastor's wife sharply rebuked her and then told her that what she did in America was a pagan practice. Only the Catholic pope, priest, monk, or nun, and a Hindu sannyasi, male, or sannyasini, female, do such abominable practices. According to her, a true Christian should not make such a heretical vow. The heretical decision of Sister Christina immediately reached the ears of the senior pastor, his many assistant pastors, and their wives who were pastors too, and then spread like fire among the elders and their surviving wives, the deacons and the deaconesses, the prophets and the prophetesses, the apostles, the Bible male teachers and female teachers, the leaders of the many prayer cells, women's leaders, youth leaders, and the leaders of house churches and other various groups. Sister Christina then found herself immersed in many counseling sessions designed to align her with the beliefs of the proper Church of Christ. Being subjected to such a huge amount of harsh counseling and rebuking, Sister Christina is forced to review her vow of celibacy. Nonetheless, she told her counselors that she looked at those 3 brothers who were helping to locate her Muslim mother as good friends, but she is not interested in marrying any one of them. Her decision disappointed many people in the church, especially her helpers and their families. However, shortly after rejecting the 3 marriage proposals of her helpers, Sister Christina received a prophecy uttered by one of the highly respectable prophets of the church. In his prophecy, he claimed that the Lord Jesus Christ appeared to him, talked to him, and told him that he had chosen Sister Christina as a suitable helper and wife for his faithful servant brother Bruno. For that very reason, thus said the Lord, I have caused her to forsake her comfortable life in the States and come to dwell in India for a season of time. Brother Bruno happened to be one of her 3 helpers. She admires him more than the other 2 brothers. At first, Sister Christina is tempted to reject the prophecy, but another prominent self-appointed prophet in the church has confirmed it. Now, the American girl, Christina Lewinsky, has no way to reject a confirmed prophecy and thinks she can be allowed to remain in the church. According to the collective dogma and one of the established beliefs of all leaders and believers in the church, if a prophecy has been uttered by 2 brothers or sisters, then it is from the Lord Jesus Christ, and everyone must abide by it. In accordance, Christina has found herself faced with a serious dilemma. She must choose between one of the 2 horns of the dilemma. She has either to accept the confirmed prophecy and marry Brother Bruno, or reject it and get kicked out of the church and considered a backslidden Christian girl. Before we find out what she has chosen to do, we must go back in time and reveal what that prominent self-appointed prophet had done before she arrived in that Bandra church, which is situated in the most opulent neighborhood in Mumbai. Chapter 10. A one-sided love story of a Brahmin girl and an outcast boy in a Christian church. Not exceedingly long ago, that renowned self-appointed prophet who confirmed the prophecy for the marriage of Christina with Bruno had put one of the families in the church in a heap of trouble, and that before the American girl's fate has taken her over there. At that time, his prophecy had to do with a one-sided love story between a rich and beautiful girl and a poor and ugly boy. Both were Christians and both were Indians, but the social difference between the two was just like the sky is far from the earth. His so-called Lord's inspired prophecy had also to do with the question of trying to unite a girl of a high caste with a boy of a low caste or an outcast. The caste system is so rooted in Indian society, just like polygamy in the African culture. No matter how spiritual and committed the Indian Christian may become, still he will follow the caste system, and the African Christian will practice polygamy. The girl in question was the daughter of the wealthiest family in that church. Her fabulous beauty and family social background qualified her to go into the Mumbai film industry and be a shining film star, but her Christian mother's religious commitment stood on her way to Bollywood, which is the Indian counterpart of American Hollywood. On the other hand, besides being poor and ugly, the boy under discussion was illiterate and crazy. The girl was from the highest caste in India, and its adherents were known as the Brahmins, who claimed to be gods on earth and made other Hindus worship them, while the boy was from the lowest caste. Its followers had various names such as Dalits, Harijans, or Untouchables. The followers of the lowest group have been excluded from the caste system, called outcasts, and ostracized as defiled and unclean untouchables. The followers of the main four caste system, who are called the Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudra, are not allowed to touch the Dalits, Harijans, or mix with them in any way. Even stepping over the shadow of the outcast defile the Brahmin, and likewise, the passing shadow of the untouchable pollutes the members of the other castes. In the olden days, the outcasts were not allowed to come out of their huts until sunset. They were like bats who had to come at night and search for crumbs of food to eat in the filthy sewers, gutters, and garbage containers. In Indian society, the caste system is not confined to Hinduism but penetrates other religions, and the person will continue to retain his social status even if he has converted to Christianity or Islam. If he has immigrated to America or Canada or landed on the moon, still his low caste will follow him like a shadow or a ghost. As if it is a criminal record that only death can release him of it. By the way, a true practical example, a few years ago in the Canadian city of Vancouver, a Hindu girl fell in love with a Hindu boy. It was not a one-sided love as in the case of the high-caste girl and low-caste boy in the church of Bandra, but it was truly genuine love from both sides. The family of the girl stood against the love relationship because their daughter was from a high caste while the boy was from a low caste. To avoid social stigma or fatal consequences, the lovers fled to India and got married in a court in Mumbai. When the news of their marriage reached Canada, the family of the girl hired gandas, dangerous Indian bandits or gangsters, and told them to kill the boy as well as their daughter. Those thugs raided the apartment of the newly married couple and viciously attacked them. The girl got killed on the spot, but the boy was rescued by the neighbors and survived. Therefore, in a society where everyone believes in the caste system and arranged marriages, those two Christian believers, currently under discussion, were unmarriageable. To try to match them up was just like attempting to bring together day and night, light and darkness, fire and water, or reconciling God with Satan. Notwithstanding, the outcast boy claimed that he had seen a vision from the Lord Jesus Christ. In his vision, behold, he saw himself dressed up as a groom in white shining garments, while by his side was sitting a beautiful bride in her white wedding gown, and that bride was none other than that unattainable girl who was from a high caste. When he started to share his divinely revealed vision with the congregation of the church, everyone laughed at him, and no one took him seriously. Even the girl and her mother disregarded his divine vision. They considered it either the production of the devil or his own making. However, the matter became serious when another prominent prophet in the church openly confirmed his vision. That is the same self-appointed prophet who will later confirm the prophecy regarding the marriage of brother Bruno with sister Christina. Now a fundamental problem arose because the leaders of the church collectively believe and teach that if a prophecy has been uttered by two Christian brothers or two sisters or even a brother and a sister, it cannot be from the devil, but the very word of the Lord himself. So, it appeared that the high caste girl and her mother should comply with the rules of the church, or they would be considered by every believer as rebellious to the will of God. Some over-optimistic members of the church who formerly doubted the possibility of the marriage thought that the Lord might work a miracle and transform that miserable low-caste boy into a suitable groom for that high-caste girl as his bride. For some believers, it was like the story of Beauty and the Beast, which could never happen in real life except in the imagination of unrealistic storytellers of fairy tales that could be seen in the stories of Disney's beautiful princesses such as Cinderella, Pocahontas, Jasmine and Aladdin, Snow White, and Beauty and the Beast. The story of that wretched boy and that beautiful damsel in distress had shaken the foundation of the church to its very core. The mother and her daughter found themselves facing a serious dilemma. Their spiritual problem became insurmountable. Their faith was put to the test the hard way. On one hand, the mother had either to accept the confirmed prophecy and allow her beautiful, rich, highly educated, and high-caste daughter to get married to the ugliest, poorest, illiterate, craziest, and lowest caste boy in the church, or reject it and incur the wrath of God and the harsh discipline of the church. However, that mother did not leave a stone unturned to climb over that mountain of their insurmountable problem. She understood that her daughter and she were standing at a crossroads or shifting sands. Any road they would take will plunge them into either spiritual annihilation or social massacre and eternal misery and condemnation in hell. Before we show how that rich mother and her high-caste daughter came out of that dilemma unharmed and untainted, let us put the Bible aside and talk about church politics. Being a rich and very influential woman in society, the desperate mother had found herself being left with no choice except to resort to worldly means to escape from the two horns of that dilemma. First of all, her husband was a crorepati, an Indian multi-billionaire, and he was a big shot in the film industry, while the wife was once an actress in Bollywood before she repented and became a Christian. Through house-to-house and door-to-door Christian outreach preaching, only the mother and her daughter were converted from Hinduism to Christianity, while her husband remained a Hindu and idol worshipper. He was worshipping the Hindu god which has an elephant head and a human body and is called in Hindi Ganpati, and English known as Ganesh. In her distress, the Christian mother consulted her unbelieving Hindu husband and humbly sought his advice. The husband felt very much offended when he heard about the marriage proposal for his rich and high-caste daughter, which came from an outcast who was living in a hut in the slum. Understandably, such an uneducated boy who was from the poor of the poorest untouchables, the wealthy Hindu man would not allow him to be even a watchman or servant in one of his many mansions and enterprises. The first step the wealthy family took was to try to force the poor boy to deny his vision and consider it a figment of his imagination or the work of the devil. They hired some antisocial elements called Gandas and sent them to the slum where that boy was living in a small hut. When the wretched and stubborn boy refused to recant his prophetic words, those thugs mercilessly hammered him and left him half dead. Before they left, they had plucked out his nails, removed his teeth, dislocated his jaw, broken his right hand and left leg, broken some of his ribs, fractured his skull, and made many more serious damages to his badly battered body. The poor boy spent a couple of months lying lifeless in a dirty hospital for outcasts, while his soul was suspended between heaven and earth. Many prayers and fasting had been offered by other believers to God on his behalf. After everybody gave up hope on him, the boy surfaced out of his long coma. Following another month of intensive care, his soul at last settled in his broken body. When he got discharged from the hospital, many believers counted it a miracle from the Lord. Although everyone in the church guessed who was behind the vicious attack, no one could prove it. When the boy came back to the church, he became more adamant about his divine vision. He claimed that the Lord had appeared to him many times, while he was in his calamity, and authenticated the divine vision and the confirmed prophecy that he revealed. The wealthy woman and her beautiful daughter found themselves back to square one. This time, they had to deal not only with their old dilemma but with a nasty scandal as well. The members of the church did not only whisper their gossip to one another, but some of them went to the extent of sending anonymous letters to the desperate mother and her frustrated daughter. In their nameless letters, they blamed them for their cowardly terrorist attack on the poor Christian boy and rebuked them for going to unbelievers to solve their insurmountable problem. Subsequently, in the eyes of many believers, the rich mother and her high-caste daughter had been condemned by all as notorious backsliders, while the poor and outcast boy became a spiritual hero. The new unfavorable developments led the beautiful girl to quit going to church and stop reading her Bible. She spends most of her time crying in her private chamber in the mansion of her parents. She had become so frustrated, despairing, and in a strong suicidal mood. This new situation led her Hindu father to determine to finish the life of that outcast boy who dared to cause so much pain and grief in the heart of his beloved daughter, but his Christian wife, fearing more scandals, restrained the hand of her angry, unbelieving husband. The Hindu father proposed to use his social influence and contacts in the police department of Mumbai and shut down the Bandra church. His Christian wife strongly contested his satanic suggestion. Then she begged her furious husband to look for a lesser punishment that would remove the low-caste boy from the life of their high-caste daughter forever. If the poor boy had been asked to choose between the two punishments, he would have preferred death than to spend the rest of his life as a notorious criminal in a filthy Indian prison with no chance to be set free. Well, to cut a long story and make it short, the angry husband of that desperate wife and the father of that frustrated daughter spent 200,000 rupees and bribed some of his buddies in the narcotics department of Mumbai police and falsely involved that poor Christian boy with a drug-related crime and sent him behind bars for the rest of his life. And that closed forever the chapter of that one-sided love story. Despite that, some optimistic members of the church continued to believe that one day the Lord would release that spiritual hero from his filthy dungeon cell and fulfill the divine vision and confirmed prophecy. Although when Christina's destiny directed her feet to the Bandra church, by that time the beautiful girl had already got married to a handsome boy from among her equals in her high social circles and begot 2 high-caste children. Still, some hyper-believers believed that God might one day release the poor spiritual hero from the filthy dungeon and kill the high-caste husband of that rich wife and fulfill his divine promise to the low-caste Christian boy.